Death would have screwed a spiny hell rat if he could catch one. Balthazar laughed as he moved toward her, sinuous as a serpent. Your assassin slaves grow restless, half-breed. Are your human morals interfering with your ability to manage them? She snorted. I have no morals. Maybe she'd started out with them back before she found out she was a demon, but all the things she'd done in her life, both forced and of her own free will, had chipped away at her heart and soul, and there wasn't a lot left. At least there hadn't been until she'd started a plague that was killing werewolves all over the globe. Something about that action had scraped her emotions raw, exposing a nugget of regret that sat inside her like a pebble in a shoe. And now there'd been a mysterious increase in the number of hits put out on werewolves, wargs as they like to be called, and she was having a hard time bidding on contracts that would set her assassins against them. She was already killing them by dozens without ever having touched them. Absently, she rubbed her right arm, her palm registering the difference in temperature between her bare skin and the sharp lines of the tattoo that had appeared when she was 20. The demour, a paternal history of her demon heritage, had come with a raging libido and the ability to infect anyone she touched with a disease that killed within minutes. As sucky as that was, her twin brother Lore had gotten off much worse. She could at least control her gift. He couldn't touch anyone but his siblings and mate without snuffing them. Well, Balthazar cracked his knuckles, an annoying sound that echoed off the chamber's smooth stone walls. Will you bid, or will you let your slaves mutiny? Thanks to the bond that connected her to her assassin slaves through the assassin master ring, they couldn't raise a hand against her, not so long as she remained in the den or at Assassin Guild headquarters, or in a place protected from violence like Underworld General. But they could attack her anywhere else in Sheol or above ground, in the human realm, which was why assassin masters rarely left their dens. For the millionth time since she had accepted the position of assassin master, she cursed her situation. She hadn't wanted it, but she would never let her brother know that she'd taken it to prevent his angelic mate from being forced into the job Idis had won by killing Detharu. Idis would have lost her soul over this job, and since Sin figured she'd already lost hers, yeah, no big deal. Snagging a double-ended penknife from the hip pocket of her leather pants, she scrawled an absurdly high monetary figure on the parchment. She signed, and then flipped the pen over and sliced her thumb with the sharp blade. A drop of blood splashed onto the page, and instantly, red, pulsing veins sprouted from the fluid and wove their way through the document. Within seconds, the parchment had gone from a crisp, stiff square of dried skin to a pliable, warm scrap of flesh that would become a binding contract if the individual behind it accepted her bid. Disgusted, Sin handed the thing back to the Nethul, her stomach churning as she sauntered to the exit. That was hard for you, Lycus said, after the huge door slammed shut. From behind her, his hands came down on her shoulders, his fingers kneading, but his touch made her tense up only more. Take me up on my offer. Mate with me. We'll rule the den together. Are you deaf or just really stupid? Not once since taking this job had she committed violence against one of her underlings, but she really was tempted to turn around and introduce her knee to his balls. How many times do I have to say no? His lips brushed the top of her right ear. I can say no as well. She stiffened. Blackmail Lycus? He was one of her few precious bedmates now. Since becoming master of the den, most of her assassins, the ones who had shared her bed for years, had become wary or afraid of her. Although it was within her rights to force them to service her, she would never do so. Lycus allowed her full use of his body, but it wasn't because he knew that she'd die without sex. He wanted her job, wanted her as his mate so he could assume shared control over the den. But as nice as it would be to shove off the hard decisions on someone else, she couldn't give Lycus what he wanted. She could never, ever be someone's mate, could never belong to anyone again. Funny how she'd considered sleeping with Balthazar for information.